Hello, welcome back to our workshops on the Bach Cello Suites. Today, Allemande from the third suite. And today is a very special episode for me because my guest is not only a great musician and somebody that has inspired me a lot, like many of my guests on this show, but he has played a central role in my understanding of music and in teaching me how to bring it through my cello playing. And it is Timothy Eddy, who was my last teacher. I will tell a bit more later when he joins us about how we met many years ago when I went to New York for my studies. For now, let's talk about our Allemande from the third suite. And I want to confess something. This has been, when I was a student, when I was a young musician, one of the movements that gave me the greatest struggles, musically speaking. I really clearly remember that when I was playing this suite in concert, the real freedom, the real pleasure, most of the time would start from the courante, or there would be this moment in the Allemande where I would say, no, I'm not really in symbiosis with this piece. And it took me many years and working with Timothy Eddy, and also, of course, my decisive meeting with Anna Belsma, to more and more get into this piece. And I think now with the years having passed, I think what gave me so much struggle is that this is, I mean, in terms of the theme and the melody of this music, it's something which has a great simplicity, a great evidence in a way, a bit like a children's song, you know? I mean, first of all, it's C major, and, you know, going up 4 notes. So there is something so simple about it that it is difficult to get there. And I think this is nothing new in the history of art, that the most difficult thing to express or to bring to life are the most simple ones. I would like to paraphrase Picasso. I just cited by memory, so I don't know if it was exactly his words, but he said towards the end of his life, you know, when he had achieved everything, and then he was doing these, you might know, these late paintings which were indeed almost like children drawing. And he was then saying, with his wit but also wisdom, he was saying, it took me a lifetime to be able to paint like a child. Before that, I was painting like a genius. So I really think that beyond the wit and beyond the humor that he had, that there is something, when a piece is a lot about drama, about passion, I think one gets more easily taken by it. And here, in this Allemande, as I said, there is something disarming in its simplicity. And I think one of the keys that I would like to share with you, which I understood in a more clear way later in my parcours, is that a motive, when Bach works with motives, what he likes to do is not only to work on a motive in a way, in a sort of constructive way, like we saw, for example, in the prelude of the second suite, you know, to construct something. But it's not only about that. It's about showing us that a similar element, a similar motive can be very, very different things depending on the context. And already in these first 3 beats that I just played now, we have a perfect example of this. So here is this motif, which is 3 times the same rhythm, 3 times going down. So one could think the same thing, this rhythm. And maybe, you know, at first, I'm going to say it in a provocative way, I probably, when I was a young musician, I thought, well, you know, maybe that day Bach wasn't so inspired after all, you know, it's, why did he have to give us, to make us play the same thing 3 times in a row, you know, obviously it's not the case, but I think it is, as interpreter, as players, we have the chance, but also, I think, the duty, in a way, to see, oh, the same motif, it can be 3 times something very different. And I think the first time, it's something that first opens this flow between, within the register, between 2 voices, in a way. And you see that already the second one is also, it's the same direction, it's also again the same rhythm, but first of all we go up again, and then we go back to our C. So already with these 2 presentations of the motif, we already have something that opens, that opens the universe, and this one that actually sort of says, and that's it. That sort of concludes, in a way, a very small element. And the third one is just a sort of a rest of life of what we just created. You know, and when I say rest, remaining, that's what I want to say, not rest, excuse me, excuse my English. But, and when I say remaining, I mean it in the most noble way, that sometimes in music, these moments when we are not actively constructing something, but just letting the energy unroll in itself, these are the most tasteful moments. So this was on this first bar. I wanted to show you already what gave me a struggle for many, many years, and I see sometimes with my students that it is something that many of us encounter, and that's why I wanted to take some time to talk about this. And look how he goes on with the second bar, same rhythm, but already it's also here yet a different thing that we have to be aware of, because this time our motive is not going what could I do, not in all in one direction, but it's 2 voices starting to play with each other. Other voice, again the first voice, other voice. So this last 16th note of the beat has a very different function than when it is integrated in the line. So there is already this playfulness, and it is with this kind of details that Bach is bringing this type of very diverse life that is very typical of the Allemandes, and that is in a way a more complex one, of course, than the more, you know, dancing movements, you know, which we are going to talk about next week. So I will go on now, play a little bit maybe, and then I will stop again at a place which I find also very special, I want to say something about. Let me play a bit from the beginning. Yeah? Okay, I can't resist. I thought I would just play until a further moment, but did you see that at this moment, the sequence, did you see how beautifully and elegantly he plays with the motif, a new one, and then greetings, the different voices. And also here, I would encourage you, colleagues cellists, to be aware when this is a very important thing, to when you play different voices, and to really have the feeling that this is not a line in a way that does that it's not a line that goes to rotating, but that it's you visiting three different voices and try to translate it in your bow technique, which is something we will certainly talk about with Tim Eddy later. I go on. Tenor modulation. So this is the place I wanted to talk about, that after rising to the, actually for that time and for the way Bach uses the cello, the highest register, and then he does this sequence with again a beautiful play between two voices, and here's a moment that I like particularly, where having done this sequence for one octave down, almost, he stops on a plateau, you know, that we are going to be stuck there on this note for a while, again playing between two voices. Here a little parenthesis about bowings, which I find important and which I've encountered a lot with my students. Don't think, aha, we have a rhythm, tagaram, 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 so it should be the same bowing. I really think that if at least the manuscript of Anna Magdalena leaves room for this possibility, try to differentiate them. Don't try to make them alike. And I think here, for example, each time you play a C on the beat, it's going to be the next harmony. So I like to make a difference as opposed to where you differentiate less your two voices, and that could be confusing. Now what's beautiful is that after staying on this plateau, so he's creating expectation. So what are we going to do after? He retakes his sequence that we just had, is actually exactly the same, just putting the voice in a different way. Now, what was the top voice has become the middle voice. And now, what was the middle voice is now blossoming on the upper part, which I get. This is I have a soft spot for Bach's sequences and the way he deals with them. And then we go towards our cadence. And here a little detail. After, very often, you know, after the cadenza, of, you know, where we visit our different voices. And then very often Bach will then let us play a chord to play the different voices together, you know. You know, something like this. Well, here, it's a little detail, but he doesn't let us play the octave on the downbeat. And only at the conclusion of this bar, which is only a little, you know, signature, the bass note of G appears, and which, if you remember, is a possibility for us to give a special attention to this downbeat, because where is our bass note, you know, and it gives a special expression. A few more. It's already 1:15, so I will hurry up. Maybe I quickly play what comes afterwards, and then towards the end I will mention one more passage. Episode in A minor, and then look how beautifully and how subtly he does his modulation towards F major while we are swinging on this motif. And we go home with it with a very light step. You recognize this is our sequence. So he brings it here. Sorry, I have to find the right key again. And now, something great. If you remember, this is where in the first part we had our plateau. So technically, if you have listened attentively the first part and you heard it twice because we do the repeat, you expect this is what should come now. But instead of that, he does a cadenza, which he breaks in order to prolong the piece by instead of although of course the A is not exposed immediately, but now what is this? Our plateau, remember? Where it stays stuck. Are we going to have one more sequence, like a... No. Our final cadence. It's such a genius of construction with apparent seemingly incredible simplicity. The one last thing I want to talk to you about, because many of my students struggle with this, is about the bowings in this piece, about this motif. When they want to do, they say, oh, I would love to bring out the fact that this is one voice, and then so it's not really, it's 1 + 3. And which I think is a great idea. Also there, I wouldn't get too systematic, vary. But when you do this bowing, very often my students encounter the problem that having too much bow for this first note, instead of having the harmony presented in one élan, in one swing. What happens is that this our bass line is going to be a bit separated in terms of the impulse. If I stop on it, then I have to give a new impulse to go on, and this is then it sort of breaks the line. So make sure, this is one of the golden rules that I give to my students. How much bow do I need? I talked about it once already. This is a very good place for this. Make sure you don't go too close to the Freud when you do and that way you can have your bowing, you can have the separation, and yet you have the line. So, and now comes the moment which I have been waiting for very long. Dear Timothy Eddy, are you there? Can you hear us? Can we see you? I will adjust my camera while you turn on your picture and microphone. Dear Tim.
Hello, Jean-Guihen.
Oh, hello. Good morning. You are in New York right now, so if I'm not mistaken, it is. Oh no, wait, it's midday then.
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock.
It's one. It's one in the afternoon. So wonderful to see you, Tim. And it's. Is that okay if I say all of your students, all of your friends say Tim to you, as opposed to the full Timothy? So is it okay if I like?
It feels perfectly fine. And I'm called a number of things, and they're all fine.
So, dear Tim, the last time we saw each other was not so long ago, and was just before the whole coronavirus story started. It was in February. We saw each other in New York. But before maybe I come back to this, because in the context in which we met then, I want to tell to our viewers to share simply how we met. So I was 20 years old, and I decided to come to study in New York after having studied in the Provence with Claire Rabier, in Lyon with Ren Flachot, in Germany here in Freiburg with Christoph Henkel, and I didn't know a lot about the music world in New York. At that time, it was more at first for me about going to New York, and so I, like everybody, I knew the first name that came to my mind was Juilliard School. So I looked, and then I applied, and I went. I indeed ended up teaching studying 1 year with a colleague, another teacher in the Juilliard School. And I remember that before leaving to New York, a friend of mine, Anya, studying viola, and I met her, and she said, you know, Jean-Guihen, well, I hope you have a great time in New York, but actually what you need, and she knew my playing very well and my musical taste and everything, and she said, you know, Jean-Guihen, the person you need is Tim Eddy. Keep this in mind, and I know this is the person you need. And as it happens, after a few months in New York, I somehow things didn't work like it can happen with any student and with any teacher. I can even say the name. So it was Harvey Shapiro. I was in his class in New York, and I certainly did learn some things, but they were fundamentally some things which were not fitting to my person at that time. And so I went to play for you, Tim. I went to meet you, and to have a trial lesson with you, and which then led to my decision irrevocable decision to go to your class as soon as possible. And in this first lesson already, you opened doors for me which I couldn't imagine nowadays playing music without having had this input from you, and maybe this will be my first question to you, dear Tim. In the very first lesson, you brought this, like I would say, like a granite huge thing that changed my vision of bow technique, which is the verticality. In the vertical aspect in the bow technique. And I had come very much from the French school where it was all about smoothness and horizontality. And this verticality that you taught me is something that is so essential in the speaking of all music, but maybe even more in Bach or in German music of that time. And this is something I've, of course, talked about in these workshops, but I thought, why not have it really directly from you, who taught me this? Could you tell us, because also I have had some questions from people about, they say, oh, could you develop a little more, make it a bit more clear, this aspect in the bow technique? So I am giving this further to you, dear Tim.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry for this very long introduction.
No, Jean-Guihen, it's always such a pleasure to see you in all circumstances. You know, we've had lovely dinners together when you visit New York, and you gave a wonderful class for all of the cellists at Juilliard, and then of course when we did see each other for really an extended number of days there, it was so great to see you for you know, not just once, but for your class, and to come to your performances, you know, which of course were Bach. They were the six suites with and yeah, anyway, it's just great to be here, and it's been exciting and inspiring to see what you've been doing with this particular project. I think it's as I mentioned to you in an email, I think that's a real service what you're doing with this series, because you're inviting people inside your life, inside your head, inside your feelings, inside your experiments, your curiosity, your enthusiasm, your convictions, and giving fellow performers, and also terribly important music lovers, you know, who don't happen to be players, but you know, those of us who play music go through a lot in order to be able to do it, and it's because we get so hooked on music. We find it so incredibly meaningful, and you know, that by the way, that brings me to some other thoughts. You know, what and thoughts worth thinking about and puzzling about is, why is it that music is so meaningful to us? Sometimes, not always. You know, when we hear music, as people who are very attuned to it, music lovers, music performers, we are predisposed to find something we're actually eager, we're like hungry to hear, to get a nourishing experience from hearing music, and we don't always get it, do we? You know, but we all want it, we all need it, and those of us who are trying to make music are trying so sincerely with everything we've got to make our music valuable and meaningful to the people who are listening. And the conclusion I've come to, or I could say not it's a conclusion, but just what I've found in my own life, and trying to answer this question about what is it that can make music so terribly important. Um, and the answer is pretty consistently for me. What makes music grab me, touch me, excite me, nourish me, is that it feels like real life. And the intricacies of music, of the composing, interpretation, performance, all of the myriad issues and challenges and frustrations that come up in trying to fulfill the potential that we sense and experience so strongly for this amazing medium, can uh, can get us too far away from that simple kind of need and hunger that we have for life experience in the music we hear. Because I and one of the most one of the things that's helped me understand why music can mean so much is in my own thinking, just reaching a point where I understand that every single one of us, if we speak, we make music, because it is the music, the aspects of music that are constant features of our speech that makes our speaking expressive. It's what conveys the feeling of the speaker, and the inflections we use, the emphasis we use, the timing, the tone of voice, the shapes of the sounds, all of these things which are music and we deal with in music. It's been so helpful to me to find the my own most simple and natural connection to music, to realize that I and every single one of us is actually a master of musical communication. We are all eloquent uh, conveyors of emotion with our speaking, and we don't think about it. We don't try to do that. We don't analyze what we do with our voice. And it's inevitable that the music comes out, because our emotions actually inhabit our entire being, not just our heart and our feelings and our spirit even, but our bodies as well. And it's our bodies that make us sound the way we do. When we feel conviction, our diaphragm in our gut uh, pushes the air out of our lungs and through our vocal cords, and we articulate more energetically with our mouth. But we don't think about it. We don't learn it. And so it's not a translation. We don't translate feeling into music. The feeling literally becomes the feelings become music through the fact that we're living in a body, and that and we gesture, our posture, our gestures, our mood and emotional state radiates from us, from physically. People talk about body language, and if we talk, if we get uppity when we're young with our parents say, "Don't talk to me with that tone of voice," and we'll say, "What tone of voice?" And it's because we were really annoyed, and we were feeling like, I want something, or I deserve something, and so you should give it to me. And so, anyway, in the process of our becoming civilized, and by that I mean learning to live with other people, we learn as young children, and as we grow up, we learn more and more what is an acceptable way to carry oneself and to behave as we're with other people, and we're encouraged and even scolded if if we don't give other people room to be themselves. You know, if we're so taken over by our being our own selves, then we don't see any reason to put any filters on or modify anything. Or what do you mean I can't say that? Or that's not a good thing to say. I don't understand. You know, because it's the way we feel. Well, that kind of emotional that learning is, of course, very important, because we do need to give each other space. And one of the reasons we need to give each other space is it's so that we find that balance between being ourselves and letting someone else be themselves, and then we can share things. And it's communication is essential for us in our lives. We must have company. This time in the world is so cruel and painful because we don't have each other's direct company, and that in the way that we really need as creatures. And thank God we have we can get so many aspects of having company through something like this medium. It's priceless, as it's kind of a lifeline. We will get through this, but it's a question of when and how, and this helps us. But so really, what this all makes me think of as I'm getting wrapped up in talking about these things is that I myself in my own work, and with my students as fellow travelers in the same work, we're all seeking the same kind of self-fulfillment, self-realization. We want to be understood for who we really are when we play music. And so if we want to be understood for who we really are, everything needs to start with who we really are. We need to make sure that we're not being distracted too much by intellectual analyses or personal will to make something happen. We need to simply allow ourselves to be the rich, volatile, highly emotional, and whimsical, and silly, and deeply serious. You know, the entire range of who we are and what we are as people, and the things we feel, the experiences we have, what we share with each other through music, potentially, is life's experiences. We have the opportunity to celebrate being alive by taking those very feelings that give our life its vividness and its meaning and its purpose, and give us such nourishment. You know, we have astonishing richness in the experiences of our lives, and so we have so much to celebrate, and also to share throughout the entire range of human experiences. And our wonderful classical repertoire, and the pieces that are being written today, and the humanity that is embedded, as these composers reaching out to us with their writing. This Bach is so full of evidence and symptoms of a living, breathing, loving, caring, passionate, humorous, human being. I mean, in this particular movement that you were playing, which I thoroughly enjoyed what you did and where you took us. Uh, Oops, there. Yeah,
We
yeah,
don't see. Ah,
lost,
yes. Thank you,
yeah,
Tim.
yeah, lost the video for a second. Sorry. But the place early on in the piece where it goes to a very flamboyant D major chord, and then goes up to the seventh, and then just within a moment he cancels the F sharp, and we get an F natural, as if to say, oh, I was just I don't know what I was thinking. I just here we are. Let's go back to C major. But then within a second, he says, "No, on second thought, I think let's go on. Let's go on. And he brings the sharp back, and then he goes up an entire octave, and we have this wonderful kind of experience, and it's an experience. Our mood is lifted and carried along by the shape of the music. And if we are inspired, and we all hope to be inspired, what I'm urging everyone is to say, you can be. Just play from your gut, play from your feelings, and listen to what the music is doing to you. Before we can give the music to other people, we need to let Bach give his music to us, because and of course we need to puzzle and wonder, now exactly what did he mean by that? He could mean this, he could mean that. Well, take your hunches and try them out. And if you're not sure, exaggerate it. If it's a good idea, you'll like it. If it's a bad idea, it'll be terrible, and you'll throw it out. But that will also show you that's not the direction that it seems like this music is meant to go. The key to our conviction and to our receiving the message of Bach's humanity is our humanity. And so we need to listen, and listen to what comes up from inside us. I think sometimes of my instinct as a person within me, and I say, hey, what'd you think of that? I'll try something out. How did you like that? And me and my instinct, we don't have any filters. We're completely honest. And so my instinct says, it's okay. So, well, what's the matter? Why don't you like it? Oh, I'm bored. Come on, there's stuff going on here. Why don't you do it? Why don't you do it? Why don't you react to it? Listen, And so, okay, all right, I get busy, and then, and we need to experiment. It's our instinct that needs to be holding the reins, not our will and not our brain, in my conviction. And I think many of us would agree, don't you think, that the most wonderful performances are performances where we are not managing things. We're not remembering to do this. We have to do this. We feel an imperative to do that. That imperative doesn't come from our mind. It comes from our instinct and our sense of what life is really like. And as long as we keep our instincts and our hearts in control of our playing and being the fundamental guide, with the assistance and essential assistance of our consciousness and our awareness, even more than our will, just awareness, awakeness, then we can trust the fact that if we are playing from our gut and from our heart, and we're listening for that in the room, we should hear ourselves reverberating and say, yes, that's me. I have succeeded in getting it out. I am getting it out, but my feelings are changing. Our feelings are always changing. And so we need to not sit back and say, oh, thank goodness I'm playing very well. As soon as we think that, we're not with the music anymore. We're enjoying the fact that we're doing well. But that's not what the music is about. The music is an experience that we need to keep alive and follow. And anyway, when we feel inspired, we come off stage and say, "Oh my God, thank God that went really well. I don't know why I didn't get distracted. There are all these places where I usually get distracted, but I just that 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 is literally the music coming through us, and the source of our music is the source of all music. It's our humanity." And oops, have I got my video going?
No, we see you and hear you.
It's okay. I got a little prompt on my screen. Anyway, so these things that I'm talking about are all things that have to do with one's stance as a person and as a musician. What are we setting out to do? What is music anyway? And I find it extremely helpful personally to come back to these answers that I've discovered to be true for myself. That is, music is my feelings. My feelings become music. And if I want to get, we're often encouraged, and wisely so, we're often encouraged to, if we're feeling a little confused and lost about what to do in our interpretation, we're encouraged to sing it. Try singing it. And just the fact that we're singing, that's our body, that's our voice, which speaks for us, emotionally as well as in terms of concepts. But music goes right down to the bottom, to the source of the passion of our lives. And without concepts, without concrete stories, it just goes straight down to our emotional core. And we have this precious and invaluable opportunity, which we need to strive to fulfill because it matters whether we succeed or not. We have this great opportunity to go straight to the heart, to someone else's heart, through the sounds we make. We're not describing something. We're not saying, "I hope you feel this." We play sound for them. And if that sound is something that comes from our deepest, most passionate experiences, and I don't mean necessarily serious, joyful ones, whimsical ones, drifting ones, then if it comes from what life really feels like to us, then you can trust that, and you hear it in the room, that sound is there. And if you don't hear it in the room, keep listening until what you hear fits with what you feel. You're playing, you can do that. Just keep listening. Don't stop and analyze. Listen. And because most of the time when we're not achieving what we are able to achieve, it's not because we haven't analyzed it or controlled it enough. It's because we're not giving strong enough leadership and motivation to our playing. So anyway, these are the things that come to my mind as I said, as kind of our personal and emotional and mental setup as we go striving to make music in a meaningful way.
It's so wonderful, dear Tim, that you uh, give this much too short time that you use it to give us such essential thoughts and share such essential experiences to help us go to what really matters. I want to say something which is in a way just an example of what you just said. Is what happened in February when you came to the performance. So that was we had a series of performances with the project Mitten wir im Leben sind, which is the choreography of Anne-Theresa de Kersmaker of the Bach Suites. And you came to, I think, the last performance, if I'm not mistaken. But for sure, what I remember so vividly is that, well, I knew you were there. I organized the ticket for you, and I didn't know where in the world you were. But of course, when I came on stage, it was not a performance as usual. And I think it would be probably for anybody who would have this, that when somebody, when a mentor or a teacher or somebody, who's not only opinion, but so my heart was beating very strongly that night, and so with this, you were, as you just said now, inevitably my emotions went up, and in my interpretation, as I was playing, I was thinking, oh, Jean-Guihen, you're going for it tonight, with the timings, also with the sounds going in depth, and then maybe looking for silence in the moments where the music suggests it and everything, but basically in more extreme ways. And I remember when I left the stage and I went to see you, I went to look for you, and you were in the lobby there, and we had time to talk a little bit. And the first thing I told you was, Tim, did I go a bit over the top, in terms of the interpretation? Did I go a bit too far, with rubato and taking liberty? And I remember that you answered me, which is maybe another way to put what you just told us in a much more detailed way, that you said, first of all, you said, "Are you kidding?" And then you explained by saying that your mantra, I'm paraphrasing now, but you say, enter the role, like an actor would enter the role that he's going to play that night. So enter in that person, enter in this language, this world of Bach, and you in this language of Bach, and then be true to yourself, true to the music, be free. And then actually it's not anymore about style, about vibrato, about all these things that we do at some point have to address, of course, when we are in the process of learning. But anyways, in a way I'm just repeating with much weaker words what you just said in a wonderful way. So I'm so afraid that they are going to send us, I think, usually after 40 minutes they send us a little written message. Oh yes, Eric is just writing that the next stream is starting very soon, but they left us more time because I think they didn't want to interrupt you because it was so fascinating. There is so much I would love to hear from you. So I don't know, Tim, if I can dare to ask, maybe I want to suggest to Adagio if we do a sort of an extra of this series, like 1 hour just with you, just talking about these things and going a little further at some point when you will find the time, maybe. So because now apparently we have to leave the room because the next show is starting in 7 minutes and they are probably already there knocking on the door.
Okay.
Tim, thank you so much for this, for taking the time, and for what you said. And so I hope to be in touch very soon again. And dear friends out there, next Friday, 7 o'clock, same place, same time, and we will talk about the courant of the third suite. Thank you for following, and please keep sending your thoughts, comments, and questions. Bye-bye.